The Church of Euthanasia. So you thought saving the planet was about recycling? Nah, that's too easy. According to Chris Corda and Robert Kimberg, it's about reducing human population, of course. So they founded their little group in 1992 with the mission to promote exactly that idea, for the planet's sake. Their one commandment, thou shalt not procreate. Their slogan, save the planet, unalive yourself. Absolutely bonkers, these guys. So the church's ideology revolved around 4 pillars. Ending one's life, optional but encouraged, abortion, to avoid procreation of course, cannibalism, and sodomy, non-procreative sexual acts. At its peak, this clown circus claimed hundreds of members and thousands of subscribers. In 2003, their how-to guide for suicide on their website was linked to a woman's death even. While the group has been largely inactive since 2015, Chris Corder still peddles his anti-natalist BS. The way of livingness, aka universal medicine. This circus is led by Serge Benhayan, a former broke tennis coach turned ascended master, who got his spiritual awakening while on the toilet taking a dump. He calls himself a seer and claims to be the reincarnation of Da Vinci, Pythagoras, and St. Peter. Oh, and his daughter claims to be Winston Churchill reborn. The group's signature treatments include esoteric breast massage, chakra puncture, and ovarian readings. Whatever that means. All developed, of course, by the guru himself, without any medical qualifications. Bro, what the flip? None of this has any scientific backing, but it does back Sergey's bank account to the tune of $2 million a year. He also told his followers that if they placed restrictions on donations to his cult, it would mess up their kidney energy in the next life, basically spiritual blackmail. Sergey's teachings include gems like illness comes from evil spirit possession, and he also told a terminally ill patient that demons moved into her liver. He has also claimed that child abuse is karmic punishment from past lives. Sergey's followers, known as the student body, are fiercely loyal, flooding media outlets with complaints against any journalist who dares question their messiah. They believe he was sent from the mythical kingdom Shambhala to awaken humanity and is the only person to achieve the highest initiation on earth. Again, what the flip does this even mean? With bases from Australia to Europe, including a UK HQ ominously named The Lighthouse, they're like an international multi-level marketing scheme selling weird nonsense. The Temple of the True Inner Light is essentially the psychedelics are God religion, operating out of a Manhattan storefront. They believe substances like LSD, DMT, and magic mushrooms aren't just tools for enlightenment, they are God itself. Their Eucharist, the psychedelic substance DPD. Yep, they literally ingest their deity and say that psychedelics should be taken in large doses in a silent, dark room in order to see the light. According to their theology, ancient religions like Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism were all originally about tripping on spiritual drugs, which they claimed were divine. The group teaches that the light mentioned in sacred texts actually refers to these substances, and great religious figures like Jesus, Buddha, and Muhammad are chosen messengers, kind of like prophets of psychedelics. Their sermons blend science, mysticism, and Aztec history, claiming that the Nahuas of Mexico were pioneers in recognizing psilocybin mushrooms as God's flesh. Church of Perpetual Life. This weird transhumanist religion in Florida is all about living forever. Imagine if Silicon Valley started a church and said, hey, what if we just didn't die? That's pretty much what this group believes. They think tech, biohacking, and uploading your brain into a computer is the way to eternal life. So yeah, basically they're trying to make the show Altered Carbon a reality. Quite scary. The church is led by this guy Bill Falloon, who of course also runs a supplement company that promises to keep you young. Because who needs to age when you can buy anti-aging pills, right? He's all about fighting death with science, which sounds kinda cool until you find out his company got its tax-exempt status pulled by the IRS. So, is this a legit quest to defeat death, or is it just a really fancy way to sell you vitamins? I'll let you decide. The Pana Wave Laboratory. This Japanese cult thinks that the Earth is doomed because of electromagnetic waves. They are convinced these waves are being sent by communists, of course, and that they are responsible for climate change and environmental destruction. So, what's their big solution? Well, they dress head to toe in white clothing, because apparently white is the magic shield against these waves. In the 90s, they went full-on crazy mode, traveling around Japan in white vans, searching for a safe zone in the mountains away from all this bad energy, while their leader, Yoko Chino, was battling cancer. They seriously believed that if the waves touched her, humanity was done for. Then in 2003 they went even more bonkers mode. They tried to capture an Arctic seal they thought had been led astray by these electromagnetic waves, and if they could just get it back to the Arctic, they could stop the world from ending. Later that year they thought the Earth was gonna collide with an undiscovered 10th planet. They looked for a safe spot again and set up a camp covering everything in white fabric, even nearby trees, bushes and crash barriers. But their end-of-the-world predictions, like the supposed flip of the Earth's poles the same year, surprise surprise, turned out to be a total bust, and the group sank back into obscurity. Missionary Church of Kopimism, started in Sweden by philosophy student Isak Gerson in 2010, this group of file sharers believes copying information is a sacred act. They even got Sweden to officially recognize them as a religion in 2012. Yep. Control-C and Control-V, those PC shortcuts for copy-pasting, are literally their holy symbols. Copymists are all about free information. Copyright? A sin against the sacredness of data. Instead of traditional sermons, they have copy acting. Think digital communion, but instead of wine and bread, you are passing around memes and music files. These guys even held a wedding where vows were read by a computer and the officiant wore a Guy Fawkes mask. And no gods here either, just the internet, which they consider holy. If you think Napster was the good old days and you treat your external hard drive like a treasure chest, this might be the church for you. No Hana. Imagine a guy, Hogen Fukunaga, waking up one day and deciding he's the reincarnation of both Jesus and Buddha. But then he takes it further by founding a group in 1987, where he claims he can diagnose all your problems, past, present and future, just by looking at your feet. Yep, you heard that right. Sounds nice and dandy for some, but check the price tag. $900 for a foot reading, and that's just the entry fee. The group would scare people by saying their lives would spiral into disaster unless they attended expensive seminars or bought magic scrolls and charms. Just one special training seminar, how they called it, could cost you over $22,000. And this wasn't a one-off. Members were constantly pressured to cough up more money to purify their bodies or save their families from curses, of course. All the while, Fukunaga was strutting around in $5,000 suits and custom Italian shoes. Turns out, it was all one massive scam. Fukunaga ended up swindling millions from his followers before getting sentenced to 12 years in prison. The Moses of Crete movement. In the year 440 AD, there was a guy named Moses on the island of Crete, and he decided to remix the Exodus story with some cliff diving action. This guy not only claimed he was like Moses, he said he was Moses, the Messiah, back for a sequel. His pitch? Lead the Jews of Crete out of Roman rule and into safety across the ocean by moving the sea aside. No boats necessary. Moses built quite a following through his charismatic preaching, convincing his people to leave their lives and belongings behind for this ocean-crossing miracle. His plan was straightforward: march to the edge of a cliff overlooking the sea and step right off. But he, of course, wasn't the first to walk off the cliff, and physics and reality didn't cooperate. Like lemmings, his followers fell straight into the ocean and drowned. Thankfully, local fishermen rescued some of them, and the smarter folks at the back of the line decided to nope out of there. As for Moses himself, he vanished faster than you can say Messiah fraud. Growing Grace International Ministry, led by José de Jesus Miranda. This guy claimed he was Jesus reincarnated and said worship of Jesus was invalid. Later, he even upgraded himself to God. But he didn't stop there, no, he slapped a 666 tattoo on his arm and said, "Hey, and by the way, I'm also the Antichrist." He demanded the same from his followers, of course. Millions followed him across 35 nations and declared allegiance. How does that even happen? This is almost as ridiculous as the mood swings of my 4-year-old son. One second he's telling me he loves me and the next he hates me because I said no to 3 bags of chips for breakfast. But back to Jose, who had all the classic cult vibes, total control, weird doctrines, and a lifestyle so lavish it made televangelists look modest. He told his flock that Satan was dead, sin and hell were fake, the 10 Commandments were outdated, and prayer was useless. He basically preached, do whatever you want, but give me your money. Of course, poor Jose needed the luxury life he deserved. Imagine telling grandma you skipped Sunday service because your pastor said it's fine to shotgun a beer, rob a vending machine and call it a holy day. That was his style. Christmas? Nah, that's on 22nd of April now. Jose's birthday, of course. He also promised that by the 30th of June 2012, he and his followers would become immortal superheroes, able to walk through walls and fire like it was a Marvel audition. They stayed very mortal, and the group fell apart after his death in 2013. But hey, at least they got these cool sick tattoos as a conversation starter in it. What a clown fiesta. The Breatharian Institute of America. This group believes you can live entirely on air and sunlight. No food, no water. That's for weaklings. Wiley Brooks founded the movement in 1980 and he really committed, except when he didn't. Turns out even Wiley had cravings for cheeseburgers, some good old soda and the occasional Twinkie. He of course claimed this was all part of balancing the junk energy in our polluted world. That didn't deter his followers who saw it as part of a mystical journey. Wiley believed in 5D and 3D worlds that are interconnected. And only certain foods, like McDonald's cheeseburgers and Diet Coke, were blessed enough by the vibes of the 5D realm. Oh, and if you wanted to learn his no-eating trick mumbo jumbo stuff, that would cost you anywhere from $10,000 to $50 billion. Yeah, very cheap. Come on, you can't skip his immortality workshop. It only costs a lousy $100K. But no worries, he also had payment plans. Buddhafield, founded in Hollywood in the 1980s by Jamie Gomez, this group recruited through yoga studios and promises of spiritual enlightenment. Gomez, who strutted around in nothing but eyeliner and swim briefs, presented himself as a living deity with the ability to transfer divine power to his followers with a dramatic touch of his finger. His group embraced New Age principles and demanded extreme loyalty, which included celibacy for followers, while Gomez of course broke his rule regularly with his followers, and even 3 to 5 hour ballet practices. Members also underwent name changes and sometimes plastic surgery, reportedly encouraged by Gomez himself as part of his vision of perfection. Despite banning drugs, alcohol and outside media, the darker stuff soon began to surface, including allegations of sexual abuse and emotional manipulation by Gomez. Followers claimed they were brainwashed, isolated from their families and pressured into decisions like abortions under the guise of religious reasoning. Today, Buddhafield operates in Hawaii, continuing its legacy. The Brethren, aka the Jim Roberts Group or the Garbage Eaters, popped up in the 1970s thanks to Jimmy Roberts, a guy who decided mainstream churches were too corrupt and the end of the world was just around the corner. Not very creative. But instead of stocking up on canned food or building a bunker, Roberts said, nah, let's live like Jesus. No material possessions, no family ties, and definitely no Wi-Fi. Members wandered around like modern-day nomads to purify themselves before the apocalypse, dumpster diving for food and taking odd jobs to scrape by. Joining meant selling all your stuff. ditching your family and adopting their rules. Strict dress code, members couldn't marry, no smoking or any worldly influences, and all finances go to the group, often to the elders of course. They believed prayer could cure anything, except when it couldn't. In those cases, the sick were straight up abandoned. Roberts also used isolation as punishment, restricted their movements, supervised their visits, and demanded unwavering loyalty. Oh, and outsiders were of course false Christians, so this dude wasn't after money, but addicted to power. The Cult of Pythagoras, this ancient math club of super nerds, believed numbers were the key to everything. Pythagoras, the dude behind the triangle theorem that still gives high school students nightmares to this day, was convinced that understanding numbers could lead to spiritual enlightenment. To join his cult, you had to swear an oath to the Holy Triangle and agree to some pretty wild rules. For starters, you couldn't eat any beans because Pythagoras thought they had souls. And if you farted, you were apparently losing a bit of your soul in the process. Oh boy, I would be soulless by now. And what about shoes? Always the right foot first, because left first was probably too edgy for him. Members also took a vow of silence for 5 years, adopted vegetarianism, and spent their days geeking out about numbers or worshipping triangles. Thanks for watching guys, check out my other videos on more sinister cults, I bet you'll like them.